Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Talks on Facebook Live. This is Adrienne Miller. I am the President and CEO of Women for Sobriety. Today, I am starting a new series that I'm calling Sister Skills. So, we often come to recovery, we come to these pure recovery environments, and suddenly we're expected to interact with other women, possibly other women in a pretty bad place, because usually we're in a pretty bad place when we get here. And maybe we don't know how to function in that kind of support group environment. Maybe we don't have any kind of framework for that. So this series of Sister Skills is to kind of talk about what are some of those skills that we can use when we're working with others in the peer support environment to help strengthen each other's sobriety. And I think today it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It's kind of the foundation of trust within these environments, and that is the topic of privacy and confidentiality. So let's dive right in. So when we think about privacy and confidentiality, a lot of the time what comes to mind is the really obvious stuff, right? So I'm not going to tell someone else who I see at a meeting. Easy, right? I mean, you're just not going to let anyone know. If you run into your neighbor, you're not going to go tell your other neighbor, hey, I saw so-and-so at a recovery meeting, right? Another obvious one, we don't share outside of the group what people say in a meeting, right? So if I see my neighbor Sharon at the group and I'm talking to Lily, the other neighbor, the next week, I'm not going to say, oh, hey, you know what Sharon said, and tell her something that was divulged in the group environment. Also really simple and obvious. But there's some more complicated things to tease apart. So let's kind of launch into those. So the first one is what happens if you run into someone from the meeting outside the meeting. So I'm out with my friend Lily, we're going shopping, and I see Jean from my Wednesday night WFS meeting in the supermarket. Do I approach Jean? Does Jean approach me? If so, what happens when Lily says, oh, hey, how do you guys know each other? Right? So, and this, can pretty easily lead to a break in privacy or confidentiality. So, one of the things that I always recommend you do is have an idea off the top of your head, right? How do you know each other? Mutual friends. Or, gosh, I can't even remember. It just feels like we've known each other forever, right? So think about how would you answer that question if you did run into someone. And then also kind of try and feel that person out, right? So if I see Jean across the store at Target when I'm shopping with Lily and Jean starts to look uncomfortable and kind of look away like she doesn't want to talk to me, I need to take that hint, right? I'm going to leave Jean alone. I'm not going to approach her in that environment. If she's looking at me, trying to figure out, oh, should I say hi to her? And I'm looking at her, trying to figure out if I should say hi to her, then maybe that's a signal that she's okay with being approached in public. But especially if Jean is out with her neighbor Sharon, and I'm going to approach, I need to be really sensitive because Jean may not know to say, oh, mutual friends, or feels like we've known each other forever or whatever. So just be really careful about approaching other group members in public, and then also having something in the back of your mind about what you're going to say about how you know that person in order to protect that person's privacy. Another thing that comes up quite a bit is, what if I'm feeling really emotionally charged about something that I heard in a meeting? If I go to my friend to get support for my emotional trigger, can I talk about what happened in the meeting to process that, or is that a violation of confidentiality? So you can see how some of these things get a little more complicated. So if you need to process your emotions that have been triggered in a meeting, I think the best practice is to really just leave things as general as possible about what was actually said in the meeting, and focus more on your feelings. And this is really in line with our program. This is really in line with Statement 13. I'm responsible for myself and my actions. And so we can talk about, gosh, I'm really feeling triggered about this experience from my past, and it's bringing up X, Y, and Z. And I can talk about all of that without saying what was said in the meeting or who said it. If saying what was said in the meeting feels like completely relevant for the story, obviously, of course, you're not going to say who said it, or give enough information about what they said that someone might be able to identify them, right? So confidentiality isn't just, Jean said this in the meeting, but if I'm talking to someone else that knows Jean and I'm like, this woman, so sorry, Jean, you'll always show up for my Facebook Live, so you're getting the brunt of this. My friend with short hair and glasses who has a cat named Frodo said this in a meeting, right? If I'm talking to Vina or someone else that we both know really well, she's going to know who I'm talking about, even though I didn't say her name. So, be aware of that too. So if you need to process emotions that have been triggered in a meeting, talking about what happened in the meeting as generally as possible, and then keeping the focus on yourself and your feelings and what you need to process about that. We also run into some questions about if someone's absent from a meeting, right? So when I'm a facilitator, if one of our group members texts me and says, I can't make it to the meeting tonight, I got really busy and I'm stuck in traffic and I'm just not going to make it. Can I then, as a facilitator, go tell the participants in the group who are there, can I tell them, like, Sharon texted me and she said she couldn't make it this week because she got really busy and she's stuck in traffic? Technically, I really shouldn't say that to the group. Now, if Sharon has texted me and said, hey, let everyone know I'm doing okay, I just got stuck in traffic, I'm not going to make it tonight, then that's totally okay for me to say that to the group. But in general, nope. If she tells me and I don't have permission to share that information with the group, I'm not going to share that information with the group. That's her information to share. Also interesting, when someone is missing from a group, that comes up a lot is, what about the other people present at that group? What can they share? So say, Jean, Sharon, Lily, and I meet every week. It's very consistent. We have a very small, close-knit group. And one week, Lily doesn't show up. And that week, Sharon shares about a very painful situation from her past, right? That she's never shared in group before. She's not opened up about this before. But for some reason, that week, when it's just Jean, Sharon, and I, Sharon opens up about this. It's really important that I then don't turn around and tell Lily about it. And it's really important that Jean doesn't turn around and tell Lily about it. It's even important that next week, when it's Jean, Lily, Sharon, and I all in the meeting, that we don't ask Sharon, hey, Sharon, you shared about that really painful experience from your past last week. How are you feeling now? Right? And I'm sure you can all kind of spot why, right? Sharon chose to share that information with Jean and I. We don't know whether she chose to share it the week Lily was gone simply as a coincidence, or because maybe she wasn't comfortable sharing that information with Lily. So we need to be really respectful of the fact that that information was shared with the people in the room at the time. So it's not our job to bring that up later, and it's certainly not our job to share that information with Lily outside the group or at any time, right? That's Sharon's information to share. If she wants to share that with Lily, she's going to bring it up when Lily's in the room. And I think that gets missed a lot in our groups, right? We get really close to each other. We want to fill each other in on what we missed, if we missed a meeting. But it's really important to keep in mind that we may not know why someone chooses to share something in one particular meeting and not another. And so we need to really pay attention to that. Where we also see questions about this come up is, what about facilitator teams, right? So what if I have a co-facilitator and someone, and we trade off weeks, right? And so we alternate weeks on who runs the meeting on which week. And my co-facilitator was gone one week when Sharon shares this very personal information. Can I tell my co-facilitator? Because we're kind of a team, right? Well, I would say probably not, right? Even if someone has maybe experienced a relapse and we think, hey, my co-facilitator might really need to know that. You know what? She only needs to know that if the attendee chooses to say that to her. Now, we do kind of run into some issues. What if somebody is violating the rules and maybe, swearing a lot or being mean to other people, calling other people out inappropriately, or going into advice giving. I think then it becomes a bit more of a little bit of questionable, right? Can I share that information with my facilitation team? Because if it's, a constant issue, I mean, they're probably showing up in that other person's meeting that way. I think the best way to handle that is for me to say to my co-facilitator or someone else on my facilitator team, we're having a lot of trouble with one person interrupting a lot. You may just want to keep your eye out for that to happen, and let me know if you notice problems with that, and maybe we'll need to, circle back and talk about this more later. Or if you have big concerns about, Sharon is sharing with you about her relapse, but not your co-facilitator, maybe see if Sharon would be willing to have a private conversation with you and that co-facilitator. And just, she really needs to be supported. We really want you to be supported by whoever's facilitating, and let's see if we can figure out why you're comfortable sharing with me and not the other person. But even with facilitator teams or groups that are facilitating with similar people, like our WFS online community, it's really important for facilitators to be careful about what information they're sharing with each other about meeting attendees, because what's happening in the meeting really should stay in the meeting. There are a few limitations to confidentiality that we really need to be aware of, right? So we have a lot of mandated reporters in our program. So social workers, nurses, maybe child care workers, right? They're required by law to report if they hear about child abuse, right? Or if they hear someone's planning to harm themselves, right? And you may even feel an ethical obligation if someone in your group threatens to kill themselves and says, I've got means, motive, and opportunity to hurt myself, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. It may be necessary to take some action on that. And we need to be really mindful about when we do take action on that. And we also need to be really mindful about how we share about that within the group, because there may be people who have to report. We also need to be really careful about admitting to crimes. So, and there's a lot of people committing crimes in addiction, right? But courts do not view stuff that's said in a support group as privileged, right? I was just researching this topic today. Someone had shared about a crime in an AA meeting, and they subpoenaed the other attendees in that meeting, and the other attendees said, well, you can't compel me to testify about this because it's privileged information. It was told in a confidential environment, and the court said that does not hold up. So remember, when we're in a group, we're peers. We're not lawyers. We're not psychiatrists or psychologists, right? Legally, we're not protected by attorney-client privilege or doctor-patient confidentiality, right? So if you hear something in a meeting, it's not necessarily private. And if you share something in a meeting, it's not necessarily private. So really good to be aware of that. And so I'll end with what are some practical tips, because I always need to go into the practical. Now that we've thought through all of these different situations and seen that confidentiality and privacy is maybe a little bit more complicated than what happens in the group stays in the group, what do we do with this information? First and foremost, I mean, we look at other programs, and they don't share last names. I mean, that's a really easy way to help protect privacy, right? Don't give people your last name, your phone number, your email address, unless you're comfortable sharing that with them. Speaking in generalities, right? Especially if there might be mandatory reporters in the room. There's nothing wrong with saying, my friend went through this. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting other members of the group. It's not ideal. You're only as sick as your secrets, all of those kinds of things. But it's also, it's not going to help your recovery if you end up going to jail for robbing a liquor store to support your habit, right? That's not going to be helpful. So talking in generalities, someone I know, whatever, can be a pretty simple way to kind of get around that. Never ever share anyone else's news, right? We kind of had that example. Like you said, Michelle, someone might be more comfortable sharing something in a small group. They might be more comfortable sharing it because they know Lily's not there, right? So we don't share other people's news. It's not my place to talk about Sharon's story. That's Sharon's job to talk about Sharon's story. So I'm not going to talk about other people's news to anyone. In its plainest and simplest form, that is, that's gossip, right? If I'm talking about someone who's not there, that's gossip. So we don't want to do that. And then my last tip for maintaining privacy and confidentiality in the group setting is that no is a complete sentence. We love each other. We care about each other. We might ask, oh, was so-and-so at the meeting? You know what my answer is? Like, I can't tell you that. Well, that should be my answer. Right? Who's at the meeting, when they're at the meeting, what they say at the meeting. It's not my place to say. So no is a complete sentence. If you're asked for more details, if you're asked who was at a meeting, if you were asked, who said what, or, did so-and-so explain why she relapsed, you know what? No, I can't share that. I hope you'll reach out to her and ask her directly. No is a complete sentence when you're asked to betray somebody's confidentiality and privacy from a meeting. So there we go. You thought privacy and confidentiality was such an easy topic, right? What says here stays here. But it can get a little more complicated than that. So I hope I've given you some tips and some tools that you can use to make sure that your privacy is protected, and that the privacy of your sisters in recovery in meetings is protected as well. So thank you so much. If you have questions, you can leave them in the comment box, and I will continue to check on it. And I will hope to see you in 2 weeks back for another Tuesday Talk. Bye-bye.